relationships is really important. So networking is definitely a passion of mine. Before we get started on the presentation, I want you to write down the names of 5 people that you know, excluding any personal friends or family. Think professional. If you don't have paper, you can just think of them. Don't overthink it, just kind of whoever comes to your mind. Maybe it's someone that you haven't connected with in a while, or maybe it's someone you don't even have in your network yet, but you want in your network. So I'll just give you a couple more seconds to do that. So again, just 5 people, 5 names, people that you know. And basically what we're gonna be doing here is we're gonna start today building your intentional networking plan. That's how simple it is. All right. You can just set that aside for now. So networking is critical to career success. Regardless of your profession, industry, or demographic, if you want to be successful, you need to spend time networking. Networking is a predictor of promotion, compensation, recognition, and it provides opportunities to meet prospective mentors, partners, and even clients. And it is one of the most successful ways to find a new job. But you don't have to take my word for it, right? The numbers back it up. 72% of people say that they are influenced by looks. And while I don't have the current numbers to show you the exact numbers, this is also true. It's been, recent research has shows that this is true even right now when we're doing everything by Zoom. So essentially, how you look, how you show up, how you present yourself, whether in person or on, a Zoom call, matters to people. People are influenced by that. 80% of people say that networking is critical to career success. 85% of jobs are filled through networking. 85%. And 95% of people agree that face-to-face meetings are important. And again, as we've switched into this very virtual world that we're hopefully coming out of soon, recent research is coming out to look at these numbers and see if that this is still true. And if you think about it, how quickly we went from in-person to using Zoom, and we've had this technology for a long time, we utilize it, but not the way that we are right now or that we really were during the pandemic. And so that right there backs up this number, right? We didn't just pick up the phone. We still wanted to see people face to face. And so that's what we did, right? We jumped on Zoom. So we recognize that face-to-face meetings are important. Okay, excuse me. Now, despite these numbers, 70% of people don't follow up after meeting someone at a networking event. 49% of people say that they don't have enough time to network. 43% of people find networking challenging. And 25% of people don't network at all. Okay, so back here, right, 80% of people said it was critical to career success. And yet 25% of people aren't networking at all, right? And the people who are, we're not following up, we're not making time for it, it's challenging. So, oh man. There's an old adage, if you throw spaghetti against the wall and it sticks, the pasta is done. Similarly, when you throw enough activity or ideas at a situation or problem, something will stick. Eventually, we'll find an answer. So when we're told that we need to network to help us be successful, those of us who are ambitious tackle the problem with this approach, right? We throw a lot of activity at it and we hope for the best. We go to a lot of networking events and conferences. We hand out hundreds of business cards. We establish an online presence. We build a large group of followers. Unfortunately, this tactic doesn't recreate the results that we're looking for. It has no purpose or intention. It's literally like throwing spaghetti against the wall. Networking is simultaneously one of the most self-evident and one of the most dreaded developmental challenges that leaders and aspiring leaders must address. Hermione, I can never say her name right, Hermione Ibarra is a professor a professor of organizational behavior at London Business School. And she studies networking behaviors and communication. So today I want to talk about intentional networking, right? Not just throwing spaghetti against the wall, but what we need to do to build long-term relationships, not transactional ones. And we can achieve this through intentional networking. Now, intentional networking just means becoming more focused, more engaging, more trusted, and memorable. And here's the good news, not necessarily with more people, but with people who bring the most value into your world. So I have a 3-step intentional networking system. And today I'm going to walk you through it briefly. Step 1 is intention, where we talk about clarifying our goals, right? Analyzing our current networks and identifying what we want our network to look like. Key connections, key networks, where do we need to be? So that's step 1 that we're going to start with intentional networking is setting intention. So intentional networking, setting intentions. So intention setting is often the most overlooked step in networking. Here's the thing, it's also the most critical step. After all, if you don't know where you're going, how are you going to get there, right? If you don't know what you want your network to look like or who you want in your network, how are you going to build a network? So the first thing that you're going to do is set your intentions, set your goals, right? What do you want to get out of networking? This is going to be different for everybody. It could be finding a new job. It could be finding new clients. It could be finding, like right now, it's hard to find people to work for us, right? So finding employees. And sometimes it's just about keeping our name out there. So everybody has different goals. The thing that you need to keep in mind is that you should create SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timed with a deadline. This is especially important if you're the person who's out there networking for your company and you're reporting back to someone, right? We spend a lot of time networking and we're showing an ROI, we're getting a return on our investment. But because we're not setting intentions, we're not creating something to compare it to, we don't have a way to show that ROI. Next is performing a SWOT analysis on your current network, right? Take a look at your network and start saying, who's the strengths that I have in my network? Who's sending me referrals? Where are my weaknesses? Who are the people that I need to connect to? Or where should I be spending more time that makes more sense for me and my industry? What are the threats, right? If I have one really great person in my network who's sending me lots of referrals, what if that person moves, right? That's a threat. And where are the opportunities? Where can we find those key influencers and those key networks? Who do you need to be in your network to help you reach your goals? Next is making key connections. Now, if you Google who you need in your network, you will get an endless list. All different types of people that are critical to have in your network. But similar to identifying what networking groups you should be active in, what events you should be attending, identifying key connections and influencers that are important to your network is going to depend heavily on your industry and your individual networking goals. Now, that being said, I believe that there are 3 types of people everyone should have in their network. The first person is going to be the super connector. Super connectors know everyone and everyone knows them. These people build relationships quickly and with a lot of people. They are invaluable. They match people with opportunities, and in doing so, they leave their connections with the positive opinions of themselves, their referrals, and their abilities, right? I'm a super connector. And I should be a super connector. I teach networking. I do a lot of networking, right? I've spent a lot of time becoming that super connector. The industry insider. Now, these are experts in your industry that have knowledge about its functioning, right? This would not be me, not for your network, right? So these are the people that are aware of the gray areas and can give you tips on how to navigate your networks. They have access to the who's who of the industry, and they can give you complete advice on what works and what doesn't networking in your specific industry. They can also keep you posted about the latest happenings and what's coming up. Finally, the last key connection that I think that everyone should have in their network is a mentor. Having a mentor increases your visibility by providing new networking opportunities and identifying collaborators of influence within your expertise. Being introduced to new contacts, right? Networking through your mentor makes it more likely that you're going to be remembered and that your work is going to be given more than a cursory glance, right? When someone introduces me to someone, I'm more likely to pay attention to that relationship than just some random person I meet. It sounds terrible, but that person is already coming with a reference. And generally, if I'm introducing someone to you, there's a reason that I want them to know you. It's not just a random person that I met at a networking event, which is great, don't get me wrong. But when someone introduces you, right, when you have a mentor who's introducing you to someone, obviously that person is critical to your network. So the final step in setting intention is going to be, or intentional networking, is just building relationships. Right? That's the thing about networking. And I know it sounds counterintuitive, but networking is one and done. We should be building relationships. Excuse me. It's not about shaking someone's hand and giving them a business card, right? Where does that leave us? Well, with a stack of business cards on our desk. A relationship, on the other hand, touches your heart and can create an everlasting partnership. Oops, so I'm a little behind on my slides here. So we just went over setting your intentions, setting your goals, performing a SWOT analysis, identifying critical networks and key influencers. And please, if you're, don't worry about taking notes. I will send my slides to Kathy. I know a lot of people, when they go through a presentation, they love to get a copy of the slides, and I'm happy to send them out. It's not a problem. Here we go, making key connections, right? That super connector, the industry insider, and the mentor. Build relationships, focus on relationships rather than networking, and give back with generosity. So one of the reasons that I am such a successful networker is because I love giving to people, right? Whether it's through creating a connection for you, or maybe, you know, it's about you see an article and you send it to someone in your network because they might find it interesting, or building a relationship, right? Connecting to someone that they're looking for. When it comes to building relationships, you get what you give, right? So when you bring a value exchange to people you're connecting with, it enables deeper connections. And it does not matter where you are in your career. You always have something to share, right? We always think of like those mentors and those super connectors as, well, they have something to give. But everybody, we all have something to give. It could be your own network, workplace advice, thought leadership. Part of the reason that we love young professionals and new networkers is because they bring a fresh pair of eyes to things. That's absolutely invaluable. Make FaceTime a priority. So don't just rely on social media to grow your relationships. Call me old school, but I still love to spend time with people in person. And no matter what stage I was at, it's what stage I've been at in my life, it's always been a priority to build relationships. I know a lot of people, for example, when we talk about in-person networking events, right? People who have children don't necessarily do nighttime events. Sometimes you can't leave work to do lunches, but you can double up on other events. And whatever it takes to make FaceTime a priority for you, it's going to be different for everybody. So when we look at intentional networking, think about what is your networking goal? Are you looking for customers? Are you looking for mentors? Are you looking for referral partners? That's where we have to start, right? Setting our intentions and what is our goal. And once we start to map out what our goals are, we can start to look at what connections we have who might be able to help us, right? We're not going to come back to it yet, but remember I had you start jotting down names, people that are in your network. This is the same thing. Write down some of your networking goals and start writing names next to people or writing people's names next to those goals, those connections that might be able to help you. And then, most importantly, when you look at those names, ask yourself, how can you help them, right? What can I give Kathy? What can I do for Kathy to make her think of me or to show her that I care or that she's a valuable part of my network? So I love asking this question, and you can type your answer in the comments. You can think about it, whatever. It's completely up to you. But there's two schools of thought when we think of networking, right? We think of networking. And one school of thought is that our network should be a mile wide and an inch deep. We should know a lot of people, but not very well, because we need time. So we know a lot of people, but we don't know them very well. And then the other school of thought is that your network should be an inch wide and a mile deep, right? You don't need to know a lot of people, but you need to know a few people really well. So what do you think the answer is? Should your network be a mile wide and an inch deep, or an inch wide and a mile deep? It's a trick question. Your network in places should be wide and in places deep, right? Your network should be wide and deep. You should know a lot of people, but you're not going to know everyone on the same level. There are going to be people in your network that you see more, you connect with better, and you know those people better, right? And that's okay. It's also going to ebb and flow. It's going to depend on where you are in your career, where you are in your networking, right? Those relationships are going to change over time based on your needs and their needs, and that's okay. The important thing to remember is that you want to have a lot of people in your network, and you're going to recognize that you should know some of them on a deeper level. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is action, right? So we've talked about setting our intentions. And again, this is the most overlooked step in networking. When people think of networking, they want to go right to action, right? Throwing spaghetti against the wall. Tell me what I got to do. I'm going to get out there. I'm going to hand out business cards. I'm going to shake hands. I'm going to kiss babies. It's going to be amazing. But please slow down and take the intention setting steps. Excuse me. So next, we're going to talk about action. But action is more than just showing up. Obviously, showing up is important, right? It's on there. Show up, connect, and follow up. Remember that 70% of people who don't follow up after networking events? Following up is part of taking action. It's part of networking. So Woody Allen said that 70% of success in life is showing up. And I love sharing this quote, especially in live audiences where you can really see people's faces, because it's kind of like the wide and deep, right? Like a lot of people are like, that's right, 70% of success in life is just showing up. And other people are like, no way, like that's like 10%. So regardless of how you feel, whether you think that it's 70-30 or 30-70, you have to show up, right? We have to show up to even start networking. What is showing up? What does taking action look like? Again, show up, connect, and follow up. Okay. So showing up means showing up at the right venues, right? You have to show up. Even if a lot of us right now, you're suffering from Zoom fatigue. You're here, you made it, you took the first step. Networking is work, right? It's right in the word, networking. You have to make time for it. However, when you're intentional about where you're spending your time, if you you can spend less time doing it, right? You can spend less time working on it. But if you're showing up at the wrong venues, the places where your target network is not, you're wasting your time. So connecting is about making new connections and renewing old ones. So whether you're at a large event or you're just connecting with people in your network individually, it's important to remember that networking, or more importantly, building relationships, isn't just about meeting new people. It's also about growing and maintaining relationships with people that you already know. I think that that's been one of the hardest things about the pandemic and this loss of events that we're so used to attending, right? Because when we went from this in-person world to this sudden virtual world and we began to adjust, people are networking, right? We're out there, we're still reaching out to people, we're trying to create new relationships, we're on LinkedIn, but one of the things that kind of fell for the wayside, especially for me, is maintaining, or for me, maybe for you, is maintaining relationships, right? They kind of fell to the wayside. There's so many people that I'm just used to seeing at specific events. We're able to catch up, we talk, we keep that relationship fresh. It's less work, right? You don't have to be as intentional about maintaining relationships as you do growing relationships. But now, when you take away these built-in places that we see and we recognize people and we maintain relationships, you have to take a step back and you have to recognize that renewing old relationships and taking care of the relationships that you have is just as important as creating new ones. Okay, follow up. Remember the percentage from earlier. I'm going to harp on this number. 70% of people don't follow up after networking events. What? This blows my mind. Okay, do you really think that people are going to buy from you or support your organization after meeting you one time? Honestly, if you're not going to follow up after meeting someone at a networking event, don't bother networking. You have better things to do with your time. Now, on the other hand, I used to follow up with literally every person who put a business card in my hand, but I don't do that anymore. It's exhausting and it's a waste of time. Now I am intentional about following up with anyone that I had an actual conversation with, or anyone that I was introduced to or want to have a conversation with. So how do we follow up, right? I keep harping on this follow up. Well, how do we do that? Create a system for following up with people that you meet. Here, I'm going to give you the 3 steps that I use to follow up after an event. You can tweak and use it your way. The important thing is that you need a system for following up. And the reason that you need a system is to make sure that you're doing it, right? You're checking off the boxes for each person, every business card that you get, however you keep track. So reach out deliberately, reach out intentionally. After some events I've attended, I've received a generic email that reads like this. It was great to meet you at the X event. I hope we meet at some point at another event. Attached to some information about my services. Please feel free to contact me if I can be of assistance to you. Okay, that's the spray and pray approach, right? If you send your information to enough people, the theory goes that maybe someone will bite. First of all, use the person's name. Reference something that you talked about. It doesn't have to be a long email. And I'll be honest with you, there are shortcuts, right? I have, templates that I use to follow up with people, because really, who wants to write or type the same thing over and over? But the idea is to make it personal to that person, by inserting a few sentences about what you talked about. And you're not there to sell, okay? I am not a great salesperson. I'm going to be really upfront with you about that. I'm a great networker. I love building relationships. I love connecting with people. I'm really hard when it comes to like that hard sell. But I also know that the first time I meet people, unless I've requested information from you about something, I don't want an email with all of your information about what you do. Like, that's not building a relationship, that's selling me something. So after you've sent your email intentionally, connect on social media. Since LinkedIn offers so many free tools to keep your contacts in front of you and you and them, what's the harm in connecting with people and seeing them pop up on your messages on their birthday, when they have a work anniversary or they get a new job? All these occasions are great for follow up. So after you've met, link up on LinkedIn too. Finally, set up a one-to-one meeting. When you're setting up one-to-one meetings with people, be clear about your intentions for any meeting beforehand so the other party can prepare, right? Ideally, make it somewhere that's convenient for the other person, or worst case, midway between both of you, easily successful or easily accessible. The first one-to-one meeting is about further developing your rapport, right? Creating that relationship rather than forcing your agenda on them by talking about your business, right? Let them ask, let the relationship develop naturally. Whatever your follow-up strategy is, the key is to keep applying it regularly. Your network greatly influences the type of opportunities that come your way. Developing robust connections will pay dividends, right? Both personal and professional, for the rest of your life. This isn't just about your job. You never know, who's going to come in, who's going to work, who you're going to need in your network. Okay. So the next step in my 3-step intentional networking system is commitment. This is probably the hardest step for people, right? Like, okay, I can set some goals, I can create my intentions, and I can certainly get out there and network. It's the commitment, right? It's the waiting game, the time that really separates good networkers from bad. And commitment requires recognizing the difference in long-term relationships and transactional ones. So Dr. Ivan Meisner is an author, the founder of Business Networking International, also known as BNI, and is also known as the father of modern networking. And this is probably my favorite networking quote ever. Networking isn't about hunting, it's about farming. It's about cultivating relationships. In my role, right, when I tell people that I train people to network or consult on networking, people love to tell me that networking doesn't work. It's a waste of time. Specifically, those hard salesmen, right? Sales is a numbers game, they tell me, and the more people you talk to, the more sales you get, right? These are the people that are buying leads. They're putting business cards in everyone's hand. And I honestly don't disagree. I don't entirely disagree. There are people who are really successful at cold calling and hard sales. I detest cold calling, and it's not how I sell. But again, like I said earlier, networking and sales are two different things. So networking is farming long-term relationships that you can harvest. Because you take care of those relationships, you can come back to them again and again. You give them what they need and you can get what you need. Whereas hunting implies one and done transactional relationships. So for a lot of salespeople, that's the point, right? It's a numbers game, it's hunting. I prefer to build relationships with people that I can ask for sales referrals. People are sending people my way as opposed to me having to pick up the phone and cold call. So the chief endpoint of transactional relationships are sales or other one-time interactions. Once the sale has been made, no more interactions occur apart from any customer service issues that might arise. Making commitments is, again, it's about building those relationships. In contrast with transactional relationships, long-term relationships put off immediate sales. I know, shocking, right? Like, oh, I can't make a sale. And no, instead, we're seeking to build connections and mutual benefits, right? How can I help this person? Because that should be the point of sales, right? Is whatever we're selling, we believe in and we want to help you. But when you give to people, when you find mutual benefit, you're both going to be successful. And once you recognize the difference between transactional and long-term relationships, then you can begin building a 12-month intentional networking strategy or your 12-month intentional networking plan. One of the things that we're going to talk about in addition after the plan is scheduling time. We saw that number, right? 25% of people don't network at all. And I think it was, I forget, say they don't have time, right? I think it was like 45% of people don't have time. So this is a 12-month intentional networking cycle. And the reason that I have it divided into this 12-month cycle is because, in my opinion, it takes approximately a year to really get to know someone and to move them through your network. Now, this doesn't mean that it's going to take a year before you make an ask or you get something. This is just how I have it built out, that it really takes to get to know someone, right? So the first stage in the 12-month networking cycle is awareness. Now, this is exactly what it sounds like. People are aware of you. They may know where you work. They may have seen you at events. Hopefully, they know who you are without your name tag, right? I'm aware of you. I've heard your name. I know you work there. Great. The second stage is understanding. And again, so this is divided into approximately 3 months, right? Because when you see someone at events and you're seeing each other again and again, like, again, it's that I'm aware of this person, but I don't necessarily understand things. After 3 months, right, we move into the next 3 months. And the second stage is understanding. We often assume people are in this stage when they're actually still in the awareness stage. We automatically assume that people understand what we do because we do, right? They don't. Let me tell you, I can tell people that I train people to network and they still don't understand. And it makes sense because in my mind, I know what I do. I do speaking events, I do private coaching, right? I do classes. But just telling someone what I do or someone kind of being peripherally aware of what I do is not the same as really understanding. You really have to move them through that stage. Now, the third stage in the networking cycle is trust. Trust is all about building credibility and reliability. You know your stuff and you do what you say you're going to do. Building trust takes time, and that's why when I work with my clients to create this 12-month networking plan, we don't work on the trust stage until approximately 6 months into a relationship. And again, it's important to realize these stages are not clearly defined like they are in this nice little infographic, right? And it's possible to move through these stages quicker or slower in our relationships. So let me give you an example. I have people in my network who have been there for a really long time, and we've moved through all 4 of these stages together, right? They're aware of me, they understand what I do, they trust me to do it, they advocate for me, they're sending me clients. Now, I recently just started a new job through the pandemic and everything. I went back to work full time and I'm selling insurance. So, it's a pretty common career. So people, my friends, my network is most of them are aware that I've taken this new job. Again, it's pretty common career. So they kind of have an understanding of what I do for the most part, not necessarily what I do specifically, but kind of an understanding. But when we come to the trust stage, right, they don't necessarily trust me to sell them insurance. They might trust me to come here today and talk about networking because we've been through that process together. But they don't necessarily know what I do and don't know about insurance, right? They're not necessarily going to invite me to quote their insurance. So that's the thing about this cycle is it's never static. You're always going to have people at different stages. And depending on what you're looking at, you're going to have the same people in your network at different stages. So again, finally, advocacy comes when people know who you are, they understand what you do, they trust you to do it, and they tell other people about it or are willing to provide a testimonial and will advocate for you. And obviously, this is the place that we want people. right? The more people that we have advocating for us, the more people that we have out there selling and doing all of that hard work for us, the less networking that we have to do. Now, it does reach a point, right? Because you still need to maintain those relationships, but you get to spend less time looking for new networks. So right now, I want to revisit the 5 names that you wrote down. Pull out your list from earlier. Now, when you look at these names, right, when you look at the names that you wrote down, ask yourself, what stage of the intentional networking cycle are they in? Okay, are they in the awareness stage? You know, and sometimes they might not be. Like you might have put someone on your list that you want in your network, and we need to get them into the awareness stage. We need to make them aware that you exist. You know, are they in the understanding stage? Is it someone that kind of understands where you do and where you work, but maybe they've never given you the opportunity to work with them, to do something, to begin to build trust? Or maybe you have customers or clients or whoever it is in your network that trust you wholeheartedly with their business, but are they sending you people, right? Are they advocating for you? So when you look at those names, you can put an A, a U, a T, or like an ADV next to them, however you want to mark it. Just look at those, right? Look at those 5 people and mark next to them where they are in this 12-month intentional networking cycle. Okay. Now the next step is to make a note about how we can move them to the next level, right? If they're not even in the awareness stage, I'm going to give you a hint. Go to LinkedIn, type in their name. The beautiful thing about LinkedIn is it shows your second and third connections. So if I type in someone that I want to meet and I see that Kathy Geiger is a mutual connection, and I know that Kathy, trusts and advocates for me, well, I can reach out to Kathy and say, hey, I'm really looking to meet so-and-so. Would you facilitate an introduction? And that's how I move that person into the awareness stage. Are they in the understanding stage? How do we move them to trust, right? It could be, and it's kind of simple sometimes, right? It could be a phone call, an email. It's just, what is your next touch point? How can we move them to the next stage? Now, once you've decided like what that step is, jot it down, right? What are we going to do? How are we going to commit to take action? Am I going to ask that person who trusts me with my business or trusts me with their business to write me a referral or send customers my way or write me a testimonial, right? Write down that action step and commit to take action. Congratulations! You've just started writing your 12-month intentional networking plan. It's really that simple. It's not hard, it's just time consuming, right? Because we have to be intentional. You're going to keep adding names, you're going to create touch points, and you need to stay committed to doing so, right? So it can become a beast, right? Depending on how many people that we know or what we're looking for. That's why I like to start with 5 to show people the simplicity of it. It doesn't have to be complicated or hard. It's just making the effort to move those people through. So we're going to talk about prioritizing networking. By the time I get to this point in the presentation, most people are beginning to feel overwhelmed, right? We should somehow be in contact with everyone. How am I going to meet all these people, especially on Zoom? Thankfully, we're going back to this in-person networking soon. Things are beginning to open up, but still, how am I supposed to connect with all of these people? I still have to work, right? I still have to do laundry and cook and clean. Focus on a limited number of contacts. Right, again, that's why we started with 5, and your list doesn't have to be with 5. Start with as many as you're comfortable with, but focus on a limited number. Now, who should be on that list? Well, think about it. Who can make a real difference to your professional future? Because the people that are going to be on your list are different than different than the people that are going to be on my list. Now, they could be current or past clients, prospective clients, people who are going to give you recommendations, people in your company who are critical to your promotional chances, right? That's something that we don't touch on a lot, but internal networking is extremely important. They could be possible mentors, sponsors, or friends who are those super connectors, right? Now, in effort to not get overwhelmed or to focus on a limited number of contacts, I also suggest creating tiers, right? So think of this in terms of your top 10, maybe your top 50, and your top 100, right? Now you're going to devote more time and energy to the top 10 as compared to the others on your list. You can keep in touch with your contacts in different ways and different intensity levels, right? But when we start to think of those top 10, right? These are the top 10 people that I want to get in my network, and start creating those action steps or those intention steps. How am I going to meet with these people? How am I going to do, whatever that is that I want to do? Take that action and then commit to it. I love Excel. It's really simple. It's really easy to list names and to literally put what my intentions are, what my next action is, and commitment is kind of where I keep notes and where I need to follow up and follow through. It's just a really simple way to keep in touch with people and to create tiers of people, because I can't have lunch with 100 people. I just literally don't have time, right? But my top 10, those could be the people that I'm having those one-on-one lunches, coffees, relationship building meetings with. Whereas, the 50 and the 100, depending, could be just an email or connecting on LinkedIn, commenting on their profile, stuff like that. How do we do this? We have to schedule time. So you have to schedule time to connect with those top contacts. And the specifics are going to vary, but it should be realistic for you. For instance, if you have a long drive or a long commute, you can plan to call at least one person in your top 100 per day on your ride home, just to check in. Now that means at least 3 times a year, you'll have reached out to someone important to you. Not bad. You might try to schedule a one-to-one coffee each week with someone on your top 10 list. And that means approximately every quarter, you'll be personally connecting with them. Both are very doable if you choose to make the time. So this is kind of something new that I've started talking about in my presentations, obviously with the shift from being very in-person to very virtual. I get a lot of questions about virtual networking. And again, I know that we're starting to move back into, thankfully, being able to be around people, to be in person, events are beginning to come together, but the virtual networking is still going to be there, right? Especially now that we've realized not just the strength, but the reach that we have, how much further, how many more people we can reach virtually than we can in person. Virtual networking is still going to be extremely important. No other platform exists with like-minded professionals willing to connect with you than LinkedIn. Okay, this platform exists solely to build a professional portfolio as well as grow your online professional network. You need to be on LinkedIn and you need to make your presence known by developing your personal brand. You can post valuable content related to your industry, your knowledge, your experience. You can provide career advice with your network, but do not stop there. Stay active and up to date on LinkedIn by completing some of the following steps. Completely finish your profile page, right? It's really frustrating to go to LinkedIn and you don't have a profile photo. And it should be a professional photo. Okay, if not a professional photo, a good photo, right? It should be a photo of just you. It should be clear. It should be professional looking, right? You also want an about section, right? Tell us something about you. We want to know who you are. You can include past experience, education, certifications, skills, and more. Begin connecting with your coworkers. Follow inspirational professionals. You're going to be amazed at how you can grow your connections. I highly recommend joining groups related to your profession on LinkedIn. This is a really great way to meet other people who are not necessarily in your profession, but are in those outlying professions. Hashtags work on LinkedIn. Follow hashtags. Indicate whether you're open for career advice, and speak with other professionals within your industry. Post and interact. That is the most important thing about most social media platforms, including LinkedIn. You have to be active, right? And again, this means scheduling time. I'm not suggesting that you should be spending your entire evening at home instead of playing with your kids being on LinkedIn. Schedule time, even if it's 15 minutes a day. How much time do we spend scrolling Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, and the list goes on? Spend some time on LinkedIn, updating your professional social network. LinkedIn is amazing because it currently has over 690 million members. That is a lot of people, right? And unlike with Facebook, it recommends people that you might know, and this is why. LinkedIn shows those second and third connections. It's a really great way to meet new people. It is considered the go-to place for professional networking. And again, those visible connections, those are your second and third connections. And it has a really incredible search engine. So whether you're looking to meet a specific person or you don't have a name, right? That's a lot of the problem. Oh, I want this key connection in my network, but I don't know their name, but I kind of know what they do. LinkedIn search engine is amazing. The next step is going to be, participating in virtual networking events, right? Obviously you're here, so you recognize the importance of still being, attending virtual events, but it's a lot different, right, than networking in person. So do your research ahead of time, right? Who's going to be attending this virtual event? A lot of websites will have like a list of attendees. And it's typical for events to allow access to their event guides and apps, for attendees to connect. Make a list of your potential networking targets and plan for pre and post event outreach via social media, email, or phone. Interact during the event. If this is an event where they invite you to comment or even to talk, interact. I know it's really awkward still for some of us to be on Zoom. Oh, you're on mute, right? We all do it, but try to be as active as possible. That's how you're going to get the attention of other people. That's how you're going to build relationships. And again, connect on LinkedIn. So reconnecting with your connections. This was something that I had to really sit down and do during the pandemic. Again, right, there's these built-in events that I'm so used to attending, all of these places that I'm used to seeing people and used to meeting people at. Well, what do? Well, reconnect with your connections. If you're like me, you have a giant collection of business cards. Go through them. Right? You've been diligent in attending these networking events, making connections and getting your name out there. Now you have a mountain of business cards to prove it. Well, now is the perfect time to connect with some of the most valuable people in your network, your dormant ties. Yes, people you know, but probably don't keep in touch with regularly. These are some of the most important people in your network. Think about the people who you've lost touch with for a few years, a neighbor, a college roommate, or a colleague from your first job. These people can be invaluable. In groundbreaking research, Daniel Levin asked hundreds of executives to seek advice on a major work project from two dormant ties. Now, when they compared the value of these conversations, right, from these dormant ties to advice that these executives had received from their current contacts, the dormant ties were actually more useful. The executives received more valuable solutions, referrals, and problem-solving assistance from people they used to know. Why? Well, just like weak ties, dormant ties offer novel information. In the years or the time that since you've last talked, they've connected with new people and they've gathered new knowledge. But unlike weak ties, dormant ties bring the benefits of strong ties, right? These people have already been in your network. You've already met them. We're already moving them through that cycle. We just have to move them through it again, which generally happens quicker. That history and shared experience that you have is going to make it more comfortable to reconnect, and you can count on them to care more about you than just recent acquaintances do. That is all I have for you. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, conversation, anything.
All right. If there's not any questions, Neena, I just want to say thank you so much. We appreciate your time and teaching us these very important networking skills and how to build relationships. Next month, everyone, I know I sent an email about GMCA. We will be working with the trades camp students that will be coming in either the week of July 12th or the 19th. Still waiting to hear back from Bridget Stadenwater on that, and what time and date we will be needed. But if there's a certain day you are available the week of July 12th or 19th, I believe it's Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday is the camps, just let me know. And then I also sent you invites for the Water Hole Wednesday events that are happening in Lansing on June 16th at Reno's North and June 30th in Midland at Molasses. Everyone is welcome, and it'll be a great opportunity to learn your new networking skills. Neena, if you're available, let me know. I'd love for you to attend too, and I can send you that information. So as Neena mentioned, I'll send everyone her slides and her contact information. And I guess that's it. So thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you.
Thank you.